Hey, welcome back to reallibertymedia.com, rlmradio.xyz. I'm your host for a Ponder Gander, What Matters in Considering Perspectives. Um, every week, Fridays, it's a Freaker Friday, and a little later on, about 6 hours, we're going to have Grammy Mary on with her podcast Blast Off in the rocket chair, and Grimner comes along with Moose Girl at 10 o'clock Central, and for the Freakers Ball, y'all. Well, today I'm going to carry over some from last week, and the butt hurt poot. Well, what the joke was supposed to be on me kind of turned sour, and we'll talk more to that. And we'll start off with a little bit of this about strange words, and it's like a movie song, and the situational sound. You often pick words rather for sound rather than meaning. And I got that from Alfred Hitchcock's movie called Rope with Jimmy Stewart. So if you're into old movies, then that was one, and I enjoyed. And like words, like rope, you usually have enough to hang yourself. And I kind of did shoot the foot. So we're gonna have a reboot. So it is noon Central Time, and it is more of what matters to Ponder Gander. Today's title is FBI Informants and You Too Redo. So I'm going to try to pick up a little bit from last week, and sorry about the audio quality. It really sucked. So plus, Tales from Texas, and don't fence me in. I'm going to look at the fencing laws here in Texas, and maybe it might relate just a little bit out west there in Bunkerville, where the cattle run, and there is no fences. But anyway, so easily offended, and yes, I said easily. The butt hurt poot, the joke that was meant to be on me sours. And also, let me tell you what I know about the Bundys. And the truth doesn't hurt, and it matters how you stand. Continuing, we're going to kind of consider lost in space, locked in place. Locked in space or left in place. The past doesn't matter in the sense that the future is what counts. And we're looking at a time for selflessness and the altruist answers, the environment of emotions. Having lived in love, know no fear. And when is enough enough? Never. That came from the Mexican. So some movie references today, and some kind of what I took from the object lesson, or I call it abject lesson. So do small things in a great way, or hopefully great things in a small way at least, and that's what I've been attempting to do with my standing as witness. And I've been these last several months involved and focused with the Bundys, and from there it went to Oregon up to the Malheur Refuge. So last week I did shoot myself in the foot, or shoot in the foot. Yeah, it's a shot in the foot reboot. An unusually stimulating last minute odds and ends, and more there are casualties. And that is a fact. I'm going to drop over back to the chat here and say how to do as this thing winds itself up. And I want to begin with Hal Anthony's broadcast last week. And he was asked for explanation of how he came to the conclusion he does. And that was from BTW RLM 264. And ad hoc taking for granted. All right. The words I use or anybody else use, you can't put your own definition on them, right? There's this thing that we're in. It's a path that is narrow, and we have to stay focused and stay on that path, and yet avoid being harmed. So focus on one particular for yourself. If you want to make a difference, Al was telling us, and it's how it's put together. And we need to take a look at these things, how it's put together, and these things we're having to suffer. Or what's the best approach to the problem with what information you might have, and what is the remedy whether it be through injunction and understanding the rules of evidence. Wrong, you have to make right. Um, it is good to take time to study the subject matter, the headlines, observation and arguments, or position, and how it works, how it is all put together. Approach, not defeat, right? Now, I want to go to these great things and small things in a great way, great things in a small way. And it is like a movie sound, a sound bite sometimes. Um, let's see here. If that in war there are casualties, all that's really been said a lot of times. That was just a little blurb from Stargate Atlantis, The Siege Part 1. I didn't get to see Part 2. So I watch a lot more television. It might seem these days where I'm at. I'm here in Texas, but I want to start. First of all, let me tell you that John Lamb has been in a terrible accident. In that reference to butthurt poot of myself from last week, I would go on to say, as I was saying last week, I should have called John. I was the butthurt poot again. So I knew that was going to be taken the wrong way. It was going to be a lot of backlash, and yeah, that's what I got. John's a great guy. I'm not against John. For whatever reason, we did not meet up here in Texas for to go down and do that interview down in Waco. But I was trying to, as I was wagging my fingers, I was trying to get them. What was quite obvious is the three pointing back at me again. Thank you, Grammy Mary. We don't see people for who they actually are. We see people for who we perceive them to be. And that's unfortunate. And like I said, I knew what was going to happen. It weighed on me heavily. I was thinking during the whole time that I was over here wagging my finger, I should call John. I should talk to him. What if something happened and we never have that opportunity for amends? And in the Bible, it says, if you have a problem with your brother, you should go to him between just you and him. So I greatly failed in that respect. Definitely. I want to talk more also about the different types of FBI informants, and Melissa Louder in particular. I did take a great deal of slack on that, but I knew I was going to. So Angie Bundy, she was pretty disappointed in me, considering that that Melissa Louder was going to testify that Lavoie was suicidal. I have more to this I'll come to, but basically, what is willing to stand unto death. We'll talk more to that a little later. So I watched The Mexican again with Brad Pitt. That's one of my favorite movies. There's a few that I've watched a lot of times, and believe it or not, even after a few dozen views, there's still more stuff that I can cipher out of there, that abject lessons. So if I can put this together, and I want to be able to relay a bit as to Lavoie Finicum. I consider, he was standing for what matters and what's right. He knew the possible consequences. And so we look at, as opposed to I, we see sacred honor. Ad infinitum, I, selfish ego. And that also rolls back into another movie, which Guardian of the Galaxy 2, and I'll be coming to that as well. So El Camino, the road, it starts out as a premonition of death. And did Lavoie not have that too? Many people said that he talked about that. He didn't believe that he would be leaving that place alive. And as it turns out he did, but was stopped short. So at crossroads, these near hits, or better, near misses, right? and the Day of the Dead, Dia de Muerte, um, and the luck of the draw. So a lot factors into this path of life we're on, and sometimes we wrongly position ourselves, and that's where we must take caution. There's whether it be a siesta or a fiesta, rest or a party, and thinking about that long kiss goodnight, that backfire sometimes of our actions. Um, and also, what about the a sensitive, cold-blooded killer? Well, no rope, I gotta shoot. That's what Brad Pitt character says to the one guy. Like, well, what? You're kidding, right? You got to shoot me because you don't have no rope? He says, you stole from me. It's the American way. To stop pursuit. Okay, do we fire back metaphysically, or I'm sorry, uh, it, just think our actions, that they're very powerful, and our words even more so. So do we look to the altruism, the heart of the Mexican. If you know people from Mexico, you know they have great hospitality, food, drink, nourishment, um, great folks. I'm laughing because I'm reading ahead. So guns don't kill people, right? Postal workers do. Well, that came again from the movie. We can dance and doing your portion. So sometimes that is used as a cop out. And that leaves us sometimes lost in space or locked in place versus left in place. The past doesn't matter. It's the future that counts. Now, suicide or murder, willing to live or to die, it matters how you stand. And do you get the memo, the severance package? Doing your part. Your hello, I say. Hello, somebody say goodbye. So, as far as Lavoie, he knew the possibilities. Does that make him suicidal? I don't think he was intentionally, trying to suicide by cop, but he did have a stand to make, and that's what he did, and it cost him his life. So bad moves, yeah, there was a lot of bad moves made. Yeah, that's for sure. So I like to say for myself, I'm kind of Forrest Gumping my way through it. Um, Forrest Gump famous in a sense that just being in place at a certain place at a certain time, it's brought me to where I am here and standing for witness to truth. And truth does matter. The environment of emotions, having lived in love, no fear. When is enough enough? Never, never. The body passes of any name. Uh, love, love reigns. And that is the same. A waving hand that says goodbye. Yeah, I say hello. And when is enough enough? Never. Love's embrace. Now I gotta set the phone down and change pages. Hold on. Do. All right. So I've been shot in the foot to reboot, but do you fight to the death as a fatalist? You learn a lot about someone you're in a cage with. Um, viciously wicked versus flawless grace. Accept your fate and love's embrace. Through the dark tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel, the story told round and round, time and again. The ring resounds. Okay, just a moment as I change places. 1 sec. And past just a minute, I'm coming back. Wait, I think I went the wrong direction. Bear with me, man. 1 minute. Where's my, looking for my, oh, I think I got it. It's over here. Yep. Okay, here we go. So from the Guardians of the Galaxy, we got a lot of music in there. And going back to these words and for sound over meaning and this soundtracks and movie sounds, movie songs, and these sounds. I find the soundtrack for Guardian of the Galaxy is much better when it's when it's with the action of the movie there, as opposed to trying to listen to itself. But again, easily offended. I never did it. I said easily. There are two types of people: those who dance and those who don't. Uh, that's a little bit of altruism and sarcasm mixed together. Ego. Never break the chains. Again, more music. And if you don't love me now, again, the music. And they went on with My Sweet Lord, Hallelujah. Talking about the God that's the small g God that's inside that ego that we have. Yeah. Experiencing what it is like to be a human versus profound and unceasing pain. You see that the two types of people that we involve or that are involved throughout in the protagonist and so forth. Beautiful people don't know who to trust. That's what it was said in the movie. Or do they not seek the glory and adoration? A dog would not invite fleas to live upon its back. And I always think of my friend who became a great friend from, he went to Berkeley, the bridge builder, I'll call him. His little dogs have little fleas upon their backs to bite them. And littler fleas have littler fleas, or littler dogs have littler fleas and onto infinitum. Sorry, I'm reading in two places at the same time. Yeah, so Gander says the music from a movie like that needs the video, just like a strip club. Even the worst music sounds good. Good point. And it's sometimes relatively, right? So we go on with looking at through this movie, the Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and she says I should run, but she said come a little bit closer, and that's a Marty Robbins song. Sometimes you don't got no better sense than to not run. We have the tale of false God and ego, and the true Guardians of the Galaxy. And the end love's embrace, all consuming or chance for redemption. History calls upon great men. You you plug like you're the meanest, but what's really inside you? Are you mean, low down, dirty, or is there somebody else inside there? You cannot deny the purpose of the universe that's bestowed upon you. Take a part of, be a part of the greater good. It's beyond self. It's self-sacrifice. That selflessness. And I think I peeled through that, and then I want to go back and we'll come back together. I also have some stuff over here on Twitter. This has come from our very own Hawk. If he's listening, I know he's over here in the chat. I shared a link. Homeless in Seattle is not in my backyard. But wherever and more music, wherever I hang my hat is home. Somewhere under the rainbow. And that's been me. As I've been traveling about, I'll be headed back to my home state of Arkansas here in just a few short weeks. And back where I started, and it'll be some many months later. Well, let's go back to some of the news. The tabs here is how it calls them. Of course, I specifically, as far as it goes with the Bundys and those involved there, where my attention lies and where I hope to be able to build bridges. And thank you, Cherry, now Roberts, not Wilson, on her little feed there on the Twitter. So, but I'm gonna skip over here and talk about Tay Wiles from High Country News. The reporter or the photographer that came along for a day that, well, I guess I was riding with them. We spent the day together, Clive and Bundy and myself, and photographer Andrew Cullen. And this will be the one of these links here I was talking about, Governor, to bring to you. So I just do it as I go along here. We'll copy to link, and we'll go back over to the chat room. So here's my response to Tay Wiles. It was a great story, but as well as it was written, it omits a lot and it perpetrates continued misrepresentation of facts. So Tay Wiles talks about the 20 years Cliven illegally grazed cattle on federal land. We start going into the second part of the show. There, we're going to be seeing how some of these fencing laws in Texas are so vague. And I'm just going to go in order here. And again, my thoughts and prayers go out to John Lamb and his family. Bran Thornton and Captain Carl, they jumped in and headed straight away to Montana. I haven't spoken with either as yet. I had hoped to bring them on for a second hour today, but doubtfully so. Talk about funny how the snowflake is on the other cheek now, and we're talking about Franklin Graham. Now he along with Michelle Fiore came up to the Malheur Refuge and talked the Final Four out. I imagined, just thought, what had I been there? But then, so he's talking about this woman at the that was roasting everybody up there. Says it's this woman. Who put this woman on the podium? This was unprofessional, indecent, and filthy, and offensive to all Americans. Very, 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 an embarrassment to our nation. That comes from National Public Radio. The isolator helmet. Sometimes it was back in 1925. It was a helmet invented to encourage focus and concentration. I say, who needs a bucket of sand? And Hal Anthony did come back with some comment for that. He'll be along here come Sunday at noon on the left coast. That's 2 p.m. Central and 3 o'clock on the East Coast. Getting over this time zone impairment that I seem to suffer. Yes, and Chuck O'Celli did get some LOLs out of that. Zero is the hero. Ponzi ain't Fonzie. Note. Pardon the pun. It's not cool nor cash. It's a Federal Reserve note and it's debt. It's a 1913 Federal Reserve Act. It's a bankster scheme that's privately owned. So ponder Gander, the ghost of Andrew Jackson, who he thought that he had killed the bank. This central bank is definitely a tool against us, part of this oppression. Now here's the good one, and Mike Stickler, Bundy Strong on Twitter here. We're going to kind of try to tie in together and get this coming up. This is the let me grab the link. It's the Oregon Public Broadcasting event coming up here. I think about the middle of the month. It's called Bundyville. Well, I'm going to tell you, I listened to the preview, some two minutes or something long. And let me drop that in there. So what Mike suggested was that we come together and keep a track on this and respond to it. Let me give you just a little outline. Whoops. Why do you want to? They want access. Show notifications. I don't need them. I know where to go when I get there. And of course, it's going to be slow. So I'll just bypass that. I can get back into the Twitter. No, I do remember what I said about it. It's full of pure propaganda. It just starts right off. If this is the preview, I can't wait for the full series. We've got pure propaganda, innuendo, misrepresentation of facts, and outright lies. Matter of fact. So Bundyville is a deep dive into the political fringe or I'm sorry, into the politics and fringe religious beliefs that drive Cliven Bundy and his family and their followers. And so that's what it's about. It's so laughable. People are praising this as some kind of great uh, revelation. So I'm back to it. I'm going to read some from there. From prophecies and nuclear testing to white supremacists and radical plans to shrink public lands, Bundyville explains how one family has beaten the federal government twice and why this battle has just begun. Bundyville is a joint effort by OPB and Long Reads. And Long Reads sounds so much like long bow. And hello to thefogbow.com. In communication over there with those folks. I signed in, trying to be a bridge in some way. Gosh, people certainly don't see eye to eye. Again, thanks, Grammy Mary, that perspective that we suppose somebody is. It is hosted and reported by award-winning freelance journalist Leah Sottile, Sottile. It's produced by Peter Frick Wright and Robert Carver of 30 Minutes West Productions and OPB's Ryan Haas. Subscribe to Bundyville on NPR One, Apple Podcast, or wherever you find your podcast. The full series is available May 15th. I invite y'all to listen to that trailer and the link I provided. I mean, talk about bias. Yeah, thank you, Hal. A hit piece for sure. Back to the tabs on Twitter. Hey, and I think the Windstream gods, this is holding up well. From Readout News, thanks Sherry Duvall. Tough on crime is tough on civil rights, and it's murdered or presumption of innocence until proven guilty. So win at all cost. Likewise, careful weight must be given in each case to the constitutional requirements of a free press and public trial as the right of the people. Are you kidding? That's what they're really talking about. We're really talking about how much do we really need to know about trials. It kind of sounds like way back in the day. We'll probably have to apologize to Hitler at some point in time. All right. Good old America. If this was America was what it's supposed to be, we're protecting the free world and promoting that. Instead, we're promoting the empire. And again, if it was all about being altruistic, wouldn't that be good? What America could do? Very bad, very, very bad. I feel so stupid every time I say the word "very" now. It just reminds me of Trump. Yeah, a lot of people like him. Go figure. Here is I retweeted from Al to real Donald Trump. Why are you doing yourself and the rest of us wrong like this, real Donald Trump? In a day where false witness is enough license to murder people, why do you allow this error? Given Iran had no nuclear program, what is your continuing problem with that? And stop. Coming from WikiLeaks, false statement distributed by White House today, stating Iran has, present tense, a nuclear weapons program, subsequently changed to had, and the program referred to by Israel dates back prior to 2003. Yeah, we can believe them guys for sure. Not. Okay. And again, there was Readout makes my paper, which is What Matters, a Ponder Gander. Considering perspectives, it's the Paperly here on Twitter, and uploads. It's generated automatically by my post. And again, such strange words picked for sound rather than meaning. Let me grab a link here. This is from History in Moments. So I might have to go back and sort all this stuff and put it in order. But hopefully, Grimmer, you're pulling these and put them. Hey, Flash, I see you over here. Just popping back in the chat to drop that. It's Twitter status, so that will be fine. Let me see if I can catch up any on the chat here. Yes. So Judge Dredd says, he says that the Empire needs to thrive. He's our resident Nazi. And so, welcome, Hans Dredd. I think I'm getting close to being through here. So, yeah, making the miles. I like Mike Bundy Ranch, Bundy Strong, the Bundy Book Tour. And you can find more about that book at cliveandbundy.net. Mike sent me the book. I started reading it, and I've got so many brands in the fire. Shout out, punch it, Brand Thornton, my friend in Vegas, and Captain Coral. So check out that. I know there was some minor mistakes in the book as far as regarding how many wells, springs there are in water tanks and stuff, but nonetheless, I do look forward to reading the rest of that. Like I said, I'll be back home here in about 3 weeks, back in the hills of Arkansas. I have some plans of reclusion for a little while. It's been a long trip, ready for a rest, and yeah, it's cost. It's been costly for this to maintain the circumference of the country. Feast or famine, steak or peanut butter. So replying to Cattle Tales. That's on Twitter at Cattle Tales. Cattle Tales, feet, tater tails. Beef ain't just for dinner. Have a tater too. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yeah, check out Cattle Tales. And here's the thing from Hawk, and I call it Sleep Less in Seattle. Calls to kick out the camps. They're said there's too many homeless people. So homeless in Seattle, not in my backyard. Where have I ever, or wherever I hang my hat, is home. And that, for me, is and has been somewhere under the rainbow. Now, as my cousin's wife was up getting ready for work, a little story in local Abilene talking about people that are really out there to help other people in this situations, people that are deserving. A lot of people are homeless by choice. They've bad choices in life, lifestyle. But then there's others that are there because they're a victim of this society that we live in. How it operates, it's a setup for the takedown. Also, let me include this one because this one has some of the music. It's a music theme, okay? You got to hear it in your head to be able to dance. Judy Garland, any place I hang my hat is home. And inside this tweet here, you're going to find links for the YouTube, for the lyrics, and a little more. And there's that one. Did somebody say something? Here, let me see if I got a message there. No. Okay, probably more than we're talking about twerking engineering. Twerking. Okay. Duplicate link. One had other, different previews. So yes, thank you. Yeah, you're right. Very, very right. Bloody well right. That's another song for the. Here we go. Elaine Park. I'm sorry, I said Cherry Roberts, and it's actually Elaine Park. It's at Elaine Park, and that's spelled EILEEN, Park TV, altogether, on Twitter. Babelina, Babika the Builder. I said, build a bridge or build a boat, go forth and carry a concept. Take a ponder gander with Elaine Park. Up there in the great Northwest, up in Oregon, always great photographs. Her photographs make the feed my paper league all the time. And here she is, very nice picture. So let me copy that one and send that all to you to take a ponder gander. Oh, there's our Hans Dredd. He goes by J Dredd in the chat room. Always the optimist. Judy Garland was a morphine addict, he says. Well, what are you gonna do? Boy, yeah, showbiz. That's showbiz, right? Now, this one here. I only have my response to it, unless I can click on it. So there's some statements inside this post, and it comes from the Goblin Seaman, and I like I said last week, I don't know that that's Melissa Louder, if that's MD or not. You know, there's a lot of people that just post it is. But one of my response was things saying, well, look what floated up. Wondered if I had. I'm laughing at myself because I said like a turd in a punch bowl. Yeah, I floated there, and but am I coming to the truth? They ask. Am I coming to see the truth? Well, truth at least is what is perceived as truth, and it is subjective to the individual. I agree that peace is settled in the law, and I also agree that being sassy to a cop does not lend towards that direction. And two, Goblin's post was well to the point, given a presumption and a proper ponder gander. And let me see if I can bring that in to focus and read that. Scroll up. I think I can. Yes, I can. So without enlarging this part, I think I can read a portion. And this is in response to somebody on their channel. It says he claims that reading the law has taught him law. We're talking about Gavin Syme. He's exiled, or he exiled himself. He's fled to Mexico some months back to avoid the claims to that they were going to cause him to open his phone to the court records. Pretty good particulars in here, and whether it be Melissa or Goblin, I thought it was well to point. And we were talking about, well, one police video revealed that he stuck his head inside the cop car. A real bad move. I say this laminated piece of paper that I got, this works great. It's a lot better than saying, "Hey, you freaking a-ho," to a cop. Don't think that that's going to come out right. Words, and how you use them. Let me read some of this. Everyone thinks he ran because they were going to make him unlock his phone. The judge had already said on the record he would not make him do that. But in getting the discovery from the prosecutor, Gavin found the Walmart security camera video he was unaware. It clearly shows him stick his head inside the open window of an unattended police cruiser. He crossed the line. The officer was engaged with a person in a vehicle and had no idea what Syme was going to do to his cruiser. So he had to focus on him rather than the person in the vehicle he had stopped. Now, I don't doubt the cops were more than eager to stick it to him, considering the way he treats them, but I'm also confident he had discussed ahead of time where the line is between just filming and obstructing. He obstructed. Guilty as hell. He knew it, so he flew, and you guys think he's some hero. I'm going to have to click this to be able to get it large enough to read this next one, if it'll do so for me. Yeah, it's taking a minute. Hey. The people there don't know what a jerky is. I think I skipped a page. Let me back up and take just a second. So he'd gone down to Mexico, and now he's gone down to Colombia. He's got his wife and kids. He's just selling his home. Now, I keep expecting to hear news of his family having been kidnapped and wanting ransom. I'm not knocking Colombia, but, you know, especially when you're a gringo. Things are a whole lot different, and how things might turn out for you. Okay, so all he's done is go up against people with some low-level authority, the face of government, and bully. Yes, bully them with his tone. I'm sorry, being a government worker doesn't mean you have to take lip from scum like him. If you haven't watched him attack a 90-year-old man who's working in the parks collecting money for water, you should. He never has skin in the game, and he knows the people he's being obnoxious to have been trained not to respond with violence. Yet, each encounter, it's his goal to make them respond with violence, for him to get a video that gets a lot of clicks because that's how he makes money. Don't kid yourself. That Gavin is doing all this out of some sort of, and back to the altruistic. I love the way things tie in together for me. I might not be able to talk to you about it just as well as it comes through in my mind, but there's some sort of altruistic urge. If you listen to his interview, you'll find this all part of his plan for his life. It started with him traveling during cold weather to warm climates, making photographs, bring the family and have a great adventure. Sounds wonderful. Problem was, he's a mediocre photographer. I'm worse than that, by the way. The technology, I'm a tech tart, by the way. So as I'm wagging this finger, I've got 3 pointing back at me. Remember that as I'm reading. So the technology made people's phones take a good picture as his fancy camera, plus his abrasive, domineering personality, turned people off from him doing weddings, senior portraits, the bread and butter of photographers. So he's ran for Congress and discovered people would just give you money. He was hooked. But it was the Bundy debacle in Oregon that thrust him into a bigger arena. The last night of the occupation of the bird refuge, he coordinated a live internet stream with the last holdouts. Michelle Fiore and Chrisanne Hall had over 100,000 listeners at one point. He thought he hit it big time. So the next summer, he thought he'd tour the country, whistle-stop style, whatever that is, and was lucky to get 20 people to show up. It was sad, but he still kept harping the Bundy's BS and began giving, and people kept giving him money. So now he's just moved his operation where there's a lower cost of living. The people there don't know what a jerk he is, like the folks in his hometown, so he gets along. Is the rich gringo that's new in town. He'll keep spewing his cop hatred over the internet because that always sells. He'll keep doing the tour videos until people are bored. And then he'll be laughing all the way to the bank. As suckers here in the States, people who could probably least afford to donate to some leech, keep sending money to support the Simon Symes permanent vacation. The basic problem with Gavin is that he tries to make everything simple, black and white, right and wrong. It's childish. The world is full of all sorts of shades of gray, and that's why our forefathers wrote the Constitution the way that they did. Is made to adopt to new discoveries. Man has found that brought challenges they would have had no clue to how to prepare for it. The system is not perfect, as no system involving human beings ever could be, but it's the best I've seen. And we need to get people involved in the system, not resisting the system. Again, another kick at Moose Girl. I'm going to kick her in the shin right there. And Hal addressed that last week. As far as, and I got to agree, we've got to, especially vocal local, we got to start at that level. And without education, without discussion, and especially when people don't hear what you have to say, then, shot in the foot. Ouch. I kind of felt that. Gavin and his pals all have this idea that they are running things. It's us, you idiot. We all get one vote. But the ones that show up to run the government are the ones that get to make those calls about how things go down. And all those shades of gray, all you guys want to do is whine, kick and stomp your feet and say no. Fine, go start your own country and do it there. If you want to be a citizen of the United States of America, act like one. And if you don't want to change things, you run for office. lot of good stuff in there, really. So um, Tony D. Futog, he says, hopefully this doesn't fall on deaf ears. I said it doesn't. I'm listening. Uh, barks at cats. Whoa! Who else says barks at cats? You didn't know dogs could talk, did you? Well, uh, well, look what floated up. Heidi ho, Vinny. Is it possible you are beginning to see the light of truth? So again, I read my response to that. That truth is, at least what is perceived as truth, is subjective to the individual. I agree that peace is settled in the law. I also agree being sassy to a cop does not lend towards that direction. And to Goblin's post was well to point, given a presumption and a proper ponder. Uh, does that mean that I'm against the Bundys, or I'm against Gavin, or anybody else? I talked about Tom, packing a pistol and having to do time up there in Oregon for being a convicted felon. That's what happens. It does. So we know this as a convicted felon myself. You wouldn't see me out there carrying a pistol around. I promise you. So we are all informants against ourselves in our actions and our words and our deeds. Let's talk about some of these different types of FBI informants. Mama Bear, we had exclusive with her on the Ocelli effect. Brand Thornton, and Choco Chelly came together and talked about that. Now, last week I talked about Melissa Lauder, MD. What brought her into being to feel that she needed to go inform? Was it to preserve law? Does she have some? Is she butt hurt? I'm going to say yeah. She's definitely got a butt hurt, and I don't know where it came from, but again, I do at least have some idea, perception of what brought her to that point. From the YouTube channel, I got a response. Wow, just wow! You support a FBI informant because you got the hots for this chick. Well, being a big, strong, good-looking gal, that don't hurt. But there's a lot more to it than that. It really boggled my mind, the whole situation. And the fact that she has no fear, she'll face off against anybody. And she believes she's in the right. You might not like the way she has to say things, but we do have free speech, or so I'm told. Of course, that was challenged in Denver in the courthouse by the prosecutor, threatening me with that I was harassing them. Now, let's talk about some of the informants there, the FBI informants in the plants. There were several. And I tried to talk to Ryan English. I really wanted to. And he wanted to talk to me, I think mostly because he figured he was so much smarter than I am. And, okay, wait, I'm back to chat here. So we don't want or need to be a citizen of any country. Thank you very much. Yes, this is the idea of true anarchy, Grimner, and not being ruled over. So I've spoken a lot about that, and we will find ourselves in great agreement. But the fact is, we are where we are at, and you can't change that, not instantaneously. So you have to work and bring to account those people in positions of authority, seats of decision, and hold them to the law. And this is what Hal Anthony talks about, positioning yourself and calling them out and holding them to account. But let me talk about some of these FBI informants. Witnesses in court, they were turned or faced, or had to face the rest of their life in prison. Excuse me a sec. And that was a good taste of tea, and not the Texas tea, but tea from China. Oh yeah, I brought some Brigham tea, Mormon tea, from the ephedra plant in the deserts, and bringing that back home for a friend or two to have a sampling of. It's really good. If you've not had Mormon tea, you get a chance, I'd suggest do so. So some of these FBI agents, this guy was a plant. He was one of the U.S. Marshals calling, hey, let's go get one of these judges, perpetrating crime. We see this time and time again where they send people in to set up the crime. Bill Keebler, he took a plea. You're an idiot. You're an evil man. You should stay in prison. You shouldn't have got a plea. You're talking about blowing up a mosque? No. If I would have heard something about you talking about something like that, I'm going to tell you, I would have called the FBI myself. You don't have any place in society if you want to be that like that. Just no way. So let me back up. Am I an FBI informant? I am not. Never have been. And I guess let me take that back. I am an FBI informant. I informed the FBI in the Denver District Courthouse. I informed the district attorney and the U.S. Marshal, a special U.S. Marshal from the Denver County Sheriff's Department. We are in a position right now where a lot of people are causing to call to question this idea of reality and truth that we live in. Should government have the power over us that it does? Again, we are where we're at. We've got to face that and address that in the position we're at. Where there's nothing magical that we can go to anarcho land and live, peaceably and coexist. We have to make that decision for ourselves daily. How do you respond in the face of aversion? So this guy called himself DJ. He was an FBI agent. We got Axe, who is a retired mine screw FBI agent. They go in there. My question that I never got to ask because the Robert Shapiro, the district attorney in Denver, would not allow any communication from myself to me, either the witnesses, and even threatening me if I approached the jurors after the jury wrong. That's the face of evil, shameless face of evil, definitely. So you got people that are forced into testifying. You got those that go in there for their own thrills. Well, why not? If there's some kind of problem, Bruce Doucette, I judge this guy to be a good heart. Boy, did he make a lot of mistakes, and he's being disavowed over at the Four Corners region. I need to pull those up. Also, I'll bring those, but it's in my history, and I'll wait till I'm done for that, Grimner, to bring that to you. A couple of places you can find out more about this, what they call a sovereign citizen movement, oxymoron. But I don't think these people are calling themselves sovereign citizens. But again, you just can't make stuff up and make it so. If you want to take back the country for your idea, it would certainly start local and at a county level. There's a lot more counties that are rural in this country than are those with big cities. And so to me, I would think that if you want to get back to common law and the grand jury system, the way it's meant to be and not being polluted by the district attorney, then you have to win the hearts and minds of each individual as you go. No, I really didn't think I'd talk this long before getting to the fences, but I still want to go just a little bit farther. So maybe I'll just go short on that one. Where are my FBI informants? You are an FBI informant. You, in your words and deeds and actions, they speak and resound. If you're in a situation like we had in Bunkerville, up in Malheur, and you're talking out loud, you better believe that somebody is listening and going to report on it. So don't blame the informant. Don't blame Melissa Louder. Don't blame Mama Bear. Blame yourself. You always pay. Don't be a fool, says Free and Slave. Don't fool yourself. You always pay one way or another. And there ain't no free box lunch, says Grimner. And that is so true. Now, have I covered everything? The Bundys. I have not. Let me tell you what I know about the Bundys. First person I think of is Carol Bundy. And what visions my mind is that that look that come in her eye, that knowing that truth, that it's the beautiful thing about truth is so easy to tell, and the truth will set you free. We don't have to fear the truth. We don't have to fear having a discussion on people with opposing views or having a discussion with them. We should seek to understand one another, certainly if we hope to make any type of change in what matters worldwide. And quit being fooled and quit being taken in by your own presumption of right, your idea, your notion, your belief. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about everybody in general. Now, we're all certainly get stuck in that. I want to tell you, the Bundys, I have a great deal of respect for them, for Jeanette Finicum, for Lavoie. He laid down his life. He knew that it could happen. You call that suicide? I don't. I don't call it free and slave is funny. We have expectations, and we should know what happens. But again, let me tell you what I know about the Bundys. They're a little bit jaded. You know, they've been infiltrated by all kinds of snitches and people trying to put them in position that they would be in the wrong. I don't find any wrong from the Bundys. I don't know everything about the land law, but my cousin here, he can't grab the concept that a person can own grass and water on land that he doesn't own. And there's the second part, which will probably have to be next week, is water and surface rights in the mineral estate and so forth and so on. But I will run over it, because I do want to share this fencing law. You're all right. You're all right, Free. I see squirrels everywhere. Not a problem. So I think I've gone through everything, but I want to tell you more about what I know about the Bundys. And I'm robbing these words from Cliven, and he says, well, let me tell you what I know about the Negro. I believe were the words he used, and that comes from his perception, his observation. That's what happens. That's what we get. So he wasn't being a racist or anything, and there's a lot of truth to what he said is about, this system that keeps us enslaved, right? Free enslaved. We are free and enslaved at the same time, and that's the system we live in. No magic land we can go to. We can't go through a vestibule into Narnia. Begin with the movie things. C.S. Lewis, what an incredible writer. He was contemporary to J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. He being a papist, a Catholic, and C.S. Lewis a Protestant. So a lot of yes, this is a lot of paraphrase plagiarist going on here, Grimner. Funny for sure. So what can I tell you about the Bundys? They're a good, hardworking family. Ryan Bundy's running for governor of Nevada. Will he win? I wouldn't expect he would. There's a good chance. I see the hand of Providence has been upon him all through this. Upon all the Bundys. Ammon Bundy, what a great guy he is. He's pleasant. He's just, there's no deception in the man. Again, our truths come from our perception, remember? So am I saying they're always right? Well, certainly not. Am I always right? I'm pretty much not right all the time. And don't really do a great job of expressing myself sometimes. Maybe I run in circles. Let me tell you about what I know about the youngest daughter, Stetzy. Man, that is one tough girl right there. Lots of respect for her. I would never want to cross her and mess with her. Her husband, Clancy, he ramrods the cattle operation there on the Bundy Ranch. Little short fella, about 10 foot tall in stature. For real. He told me, he says, I don't trust the media. He said, you little guys are all right. Now, maybe it was perceived that I was going to be coming against the Bundys in my statement last week about butthurt pooch. Again, the inside joke was that was on me. Let's go on to liability for livestock on the roadway. and this will start the second hour. So we'll go. I was intending an hour, but rambling on the range, I guess I went some distance. To understand Texas' current approach to fence law as it relates to landowner liability in the event of an accident, you must first understand the concepts of open range versus closed range. You might look and see how that relates out there in Nevada. You got to fence them out, the cattle, that is, in open range. We'll see how different, and the laws here in Texas on all this is they don't even have it all together. You don't know what it is from place to place without you checking for yourself. Open range versus closed range. Texas is an open range state, tracing its roots back to the trail drives and cattle barons of the 1800s. Open range means exactly that. Livestock owners are not required to fence the livestock in to prevent them from roaming at large. The Texas Supreme Court supported the open range policy more than a century ago when it stated, if the cattle of one person wanders upon the unenclosed lands of another, they are not trespassers, and the owner is not liable for any damage that they may inflict. As recently as 1999, the Texas Supreme Court upheld this concept, holding that it is a right of every owner of domestic animals in this state to allow them to run at large while the common law of open range is still in effect. There are two exceptions. One, the passage of local county-based ordinance or stock laws, and two, the development of U.S. and state highways that have changed large portions of the state from open to closed range. Local stock laws. As Texas developed laws, changed, and counties enacted restrictions on open range, such as closed range laws, make livestock owners responsible for fencing in their livestock on their property. The Texas legislature allows local governments to pass stock laws that modify the law for the location from the common law rule of open range to closed range. Local voters consider these stock laws, which can apply to all or a portion of a county. The stock laws state that certain species of animals, such as cattle, horses, jacks, jennies, and sheep, may not run at large within the limited of that of the particular county. Pardon. When these laws are in place, the common law rule of closed range law essentially replaces the common law rule of open range. As a result, landowners in closed county areas have a duty to prevent their livestock from running at large, usually by maintaining a fence to keep their livestock on their property. Because each local stock law is unique, the following questions are crucial when evaluating the law in a particular county. Does a stock law exist in the area? Which animal species does the law cover? Did the landowner meet the required standard outlined in the local stock law? Does a stock law exist in my county? Unfortunately, there is not a consolidated list that details which Texas counties are still considered open range or closed range. The best option is to contact the county sheriff's office or ask the county clerk to search the election records to determine if a local state option election has been held to close the range. Since many of these stock laws elections occurred between 1910 and 30, it may take extensive research to determine the status of your county. In 1981, the Texas legislature exempted some counties from adopting a local stock law regarding running cattle at large, leaving these counties as open range if the land is not adjacent to a highway. See page 8. These counties include Andrews, Culberson, Hardin, Hemphill, Hudspeth, Jasper, Jefferson, Kennedy, Kinney, LaSalle, Loving, Motley, Newton, Presidio, Roberts, and Shecker, Terry, Tyler, Upton, Wharton, and Yoakum for examples of stock laws. See pages 26 and 27 in the appendix. Which animal species does the law cover? If a stock law does exist in an area, determine which livestock species it covers. The Texas Agricultural Code allowed stock laws that regulate cattle, domestic turkeys, donkeys, goats, hogs, horses, jacks, genets, mules, or sheep based on particular law. It is possible that the same area may be closed range for horses and donkeys, but the open range for cattle. The statute also requires separate stock laws for each livestock species, one for cattle, one for horses, and one for other animals. In an opinion issued by the Texas Attorney General, the stock laws that are not separated by species may be regarded as ineffective. Have I met the standard outlined in the local stock law? Although they differ by county, most stock laws have established a standard of care a landowner must meet to avoid liability if his or her livestock roam at large. Some stock laws state that a landowner may not knowingly permit an animal to run at large, while others set a stricter standard that the animals may not run at large at all. Many local stock laws prohibit landowners from permitting their animals to run at large. If a third party is injured, a landowner is liable only if he or she permitted the livestock to run free. Texas courts have interpreted permit to mean to permit, not a permit, but permit to mean or expressly or formally consent or give leave, and that merely making it possible for an animal to run at large is insufficient to impose liability on a landowner. In determining a landowner's liability for livestock roaming at large, courts look at the owner's actions. Because an animal is in the roadway does not always constitute a violation of stock law. Landowner actions that might result in liability include leaving a gate open, authorizing a lessee to allow cattle to run at large, having noticed that the cattle were out in the roadway and failing to remove the livestock, having knowledge that livestock previously escaped from the property, and failing to maintain the fences surrounding the pasture. State and U.S. highways. Land along U.S. and state highways in Texas is considered to be closed range. State law requires that landowners with property adjacent to U.S. and state highways prevent their livestock from entering these highways, whether the area is open or closed range. Does not matter if it includes highways, if it includes a highway. The Texas Agricultural Code states that a person who owns or has responsibility for the control of a horse, mule, donkey, cow, bull, steer, hog, sheep, or goat may not only permit the animal to traverse or roam at large, unintended, on the right-of-way of a highway. To determine the scope of this statute, it is necessary to define what constitutes a highway, what knowingly permit means, and who owns or has responsibility for the control of the animal. What constitutes a highway? For purposes of this statute, all U.S. and state highways are closed range under Texas law, but farm-to-market roads are open range unless a local stock law modifies the farm-to-market road at issue. What does knowingly permit mean? For U.S. and state highways, a landowner may not knowingly permit his or her animals to run at large. This standard is higher, more favorable to the landowner than the standard found in many local stock laws. For example, a court ruled that a landowner acted knowingly when he was aware that the fences were unable to withstand rainfalls. He knew that cattle escaped through the weak fences during the rainstorms many times before the accident, or the police had previously informed him that his cattle were on the roadway and he did not inspect the fences before the accident occurred. Conversely, a livestock owner who keeps his gate locked and chained, has no prior knowledge of his cattle escaping on the roadway, would not act knowingly. Landowners and emergency responders. Landowners are not responsible for damage are not liable for damages arising from an accident or incident caused by livestock on the landowner due to an act or omission of a firefighter or peace officer who has entered the landowner's property with or without the permission of the landowner, regardless of whether the damage occurs on the landowner's property. For example, if emergency responders must cut a portion of a fence alongside a highway, put a fire out, the landowner will not be held liable if any livestock escape onto the highway. Road and highway liability examples. The law regarding closed and open range comes into play most often when a vehicle strikes livestock on a roadway. In the event of an accident, local stock laws and the statute regarding U.S. and state highways determine whether a livestock owner may be liable to an injured motorist. Have I met the standard outlined in the local state law? The way this thing is stapled. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Let me have a swallow of tea. Please pardon the interruption. Texas tea. And I'm passing by the chat here. I told your Grimner I was only going an hour, so I hope that didn't turn into a problem. And here I'm seeing the duck hunters. I will come back to where I think I left off at. Yeah, I already read that part. So we skip to this one right here. Go by pages. That kind of helps. 8, 9, 10. There we go. The following examples include various scenarios of accidents with livestock on a roadway, and the basic, and my screen went blank. There we go. Okay, so Grimner killed the duck. Not sure they're included in this here. So an accident occurs in open range county on a U.S. or state highway. The party that controls the livestock or real estate may be liable if the party knowingly permitted the cattle to get on the highway. An accident occurs in a county that has adopted a stock law on a U.S. or state highway. The party that controls the livestock or real estate may be liable if the party knowingly permitted the cattle to get on the highway, the roadway. An accident occurs in an open range country on a farm to market road or smaller roadway. The party that controls the livestock or real estate has no duty to prevent the livestock from entering the roadway by their natural behavior. An accident occurs in a country or county that has adopted a stock law on a farm to market road or smaller roadway. The party that controls the livestock or real estate may be liable if the party negligently permitted the cattle to get on the highway. Liability for livestock on neighboring land. In addition to the disputes between the landowners and motorists regarding livestock and fences, questions often arise between neighboring landowners regarding the obligation they owe one another concerning fences and livestock. My neighbor's cattle are on my land. How do I remove them? The answer depends. See, now this is here where we get into back to Bundy's and Bunkerville, open range, the cattle on the land out there. So you might consider seeing exactly how that works. So how do I remove them? The answer depends on whether this situation occurs in an open range country or is in one that has passed a livestock, making a closed range. Here we go to open range. In an open range country, the landowner is responsible for keeping livestock off his or her. In an open range country, county, the landowner is responsible for keeping livestock off his or her land by building an adequate fence. According to the Texas Supreme Court, it follows that one who desires to secure his lands against the encroachment of livestock running at large, either upon the open range or in an adjoining field or pasture, must throw around it an enclosure significant to prevent the entry of all ordinary animals of the class intended to be excluded. If he does not, the owner of animals that may encroach upon it will not be held liable for any damages that may result from such encroachment. However, the defense that a landowner failed to maintain a suitable fence is likely unavailable in an action for trespass where it appears that the livestock owner intentionally allowed the livestock to enter the property. In an open range country, it's if a landowner has built an adequate fence and livestock still get onto his or her property, the landowner can recover crop or property damages from the animal's owner. On the other hand, if a landowner fails to build an adequate fence in an open range country or county, he or she has no recourse against the livestock owner when the animals enter his or her property. Closed range. In a county, well, hello, Grams. I see you showed up into chat. All right, let's get back in here. Closed range. In a county that has passed a stock law making it a closed range, livestock owners must restrain their livestock by fencing them in their property. Allowing livestock that are covered by the stock law to run at large in a closed range county is a violation of the law. Nevertheless, the grass does tend to be greener on the other side, and livestock may get out on occasion. True story. Old boy back in Arkansas, old Mama Cal always trying to get out, and finally she got past him in the gate, ran around. The first thing she did was stuck her head back in the fence and started eating grass. Go figure. Understanding this, the Texas Supreme Court explains that sometimes animals may often escape without fault on the part of their owners when the latter will be guilty of no offense against the law. The mere fact that an animal is at large is not necessarily a violation. In most cases, the livestock that have escaped and entered your land are there by accident. Notifying your neighbor and helping him or her to retrieve the livestock off your property is the best course of action. But if the neighboring livestock owner has permitted livestock to enter your property, depending on what the laws in your county are, he or she may be breaking the law, because some counties do not have stock laws containing the knowingly permit or permit languages when describing the intent of livestock owners. This goes back to Hal Anthony and understanding what these words and all these things that are held to us, and how we can then in turn hold those in seats of decision to that authority. Okay. In a closed range county, a landowner may be able to recover damages from livestock owners whose animals come onto the landowner's property if the livestock owner failed to meet the requirements of the closed range county. However, if the livestock owner met the requirements and the livestock still get out, the landowner may be unable to seek recovery under the law. Leasing liability. Many Texas livestock producers lease the land they run their livestock on. This presents a question of who is responsible for fencing the land the livestock is run on, the landowner or the leasee. Absent from an agreement allocating responsibility between the landowner and the leasee, these laws could apply to both the landowner and the leasee who runs the livestock on the ranch. Stray livestock are on my land. How do I remove them? The stray laws. Under Chapter 142 of the Texas Agricultural Code, a landowner who finds a stray or estray livestock on his or her property should, as soon as reasonably possible, report the presence of the estray to the sheriff of the county in which the estray is discovered. Providing the location, number, and description of stray livestock often helps the sheriff's office find the true owner and remove the livestock from your property. Once stray livestock are reported, the sheriff will attempt to contact the owner. If the owner is found, he or she may recover the livestock in accordance with the procedure set forth by statute. And if an owner is not failed or fails to redeem, fails to redeem the livestock within 5 days, The sheriff will impound the animal, and if the animal is not recovered from the impound, the sheriff will sell the animal at a public auction. Just because stray livestock are on one's land does not mean the landowner can automatically claim them or remove them by other methods. Disposing of strays outside the procedure in Chapter 142 may be considered livestock theft. And to that, I interject, you could be hung or not. One sec. Doing something. Hold on. And if you heard that, you'll excuse me. Okay, and now back to the book. How do the adequate fence standards of the agriculture code apply? Let me get back careful here. The Texas Agriculture Code established the requirements for a significant fence. However, these fencing standards only apply in open range counties where fences are meant to keep livestock out rather than in. These sufficient fence standards do not apply in a closed range county, nor can they be used to determine negligence or liability in a roadway accident situation. In an open range county, it is the landowner's duty to build fences that keep animals permitted to roam at large off their property. The fence standard in the Ag Code determines if a landowner who built a fence to keep livestock off his or her property can recover property or crop damage from an animal owners if the animal got onto the landowner's property. Section 143.028 provides the following guidelines. A person is not required to fence against animals that are not permitted to run at large. Except as otherwise provided by this section. A fence is significant for purpose of this chapter if it is sufficient, that is, to keep out ordinary livestock permitted to run at large. B, in order to be sufficient, a fence must be at least 4 foot high, I say feet, 4 feet high, and comply with the following requirements. A barbed wire fence must consist of three wires on posts no more than 30 feet apart, with one or more stays between every 2 posts. A picket fence must consist of pickets that are not more than 6 inches apart. A board fence must consist of 3 boards not less than 5 inches wide and 1 inch thick, and a rail fence must consist of 4 rails. Responsibility for fence building and maintenance. Wonder if I'm gonna finish this or not. Let's see how far we got. 17. I think I'm getting pretty close, but let's pause for a minute here. It goes on here a little ways. I read this already to myself, and I forgot to time it. Let's see what time it is. Yeah, so probably getting close to going to be a 2-hour show broadcast. And I need another drink of tea. Sorry about that rudeness, too. I guess the pollen's falling and the sinuses are rolling. All right, building fence for responsibility for fence building and maintenance. Having an accurate survey that shows the correct boundary line is paramount when building a boundary fence. Without a survey showing where property lines end and begin, the fence building is an inaccurate guess and could lead to future headaches. Perimeter fence between a landowner and a state highway. In Texas, all the interstate and state highways are closed range. The Texas Agricultural Code states, A person who owns or has responsibility for the control of a horse, mule, donkey, cow, bull, steer, hog, sheep, or goat may not only permit the animal to traverse or roam at large, unintended on the right-of-way or of a highway. To keep livestock off interstates and state highways, it is the landowner's responsibility to build or maintain a fence along an interstate or state highway. However, if a landowner does not intend to have any livestock on his or her property, there's no independent obligation for a fence. Give me 1 minute. I'm going to walk away. Be right back.
Hurry up, Vinny. What are you doing here? Didn't I tell you about dead air? I'm pretty sure I mentioned dead air at some point. You can't just wander off during the middle of a live show. Yeah, I think I hear him coming back now.
Okay.
There
And
he
here
is.
I am. Hello. Thanks, Grimner. Appreciate that. And building and maintaining a boundary fence between neighbors. Frequently, questions arise regarding how neighboring landowners must share in the cost of building and maintaining boundary fences. A landowner in Texas has no legal obligation to share in the cost or future maintenance of a fence built by his and her neighbor. One moment. Neighbor on the dividing property line, unless he or she has agreed to do so. The Texas Supreme Court has held that if one proprietor encloses his land, putting his fence on the line, the owner of the adjacent land may avail himself of the advantage thereby afforded him of enclosing his own land without incurring any liability to account for the use of his neighbor's fence. If a boundary fence is destroyed by natural causes, a neighbor still has no obligation to contribute towards its reconstruction. However, if the neighboring landowner does not participate in the cost of erecting the fence, it is not considered a common fence. Rather, it is the exclusive property of the builder. Similarly, if a fence is built not upon the property line, but instead on one landowner's property, then the fence is also considered exclusive property of that landowner. If the neighbor agrees that each will maintain a portion of the fence, such agreements is legally binding and can be enforced. These agreements are rare, but may be extremely useful for neighboring landowners to specify their rights and obligations regarding fences before an issue arises. Once neighbors reach a friendly agreement, it should be written down and a copy given to each owner. Clearing brush to build a fence on a boundary line. Sometimes a landowner building a fence along a boundary line must clear brush on both sides of his or her own property and the neighbor's property. If this becomes necessary, the landowner should always seek permission from the neighbor before entering his or her property and before clearing any brush. Without such permission, entering a neighbor's property and removing the brush could be considered trespassing and subject to the acting landowner to damage. It's always better to ask permission ahead of time. If permission is denied, the landowner may have to back the fence up on his or her own property. Cutting down a tree hanging over a property line. Assuming that a tree grows on the neighbor's property, but the limbs and branches overhang another's land, what rights do the parties have in the situation? In Texas, the location of the trunk of the tree determines who owns it. The location of the trunk of the tree determines who owns it. Even if the roots or branches grow onto an adjoining neighbor's land, a landowner has the right to trim or cut off the limbs or branches of boundary trees or shrubs that reach onto his or her property, as long as no damage to the other adjoining landowner occurs. However, the limbs or branches can be cut back only to the property line. The tree's owner is responsible for damages caused to the adjacent owner from falling branches or roots. It is in the best interest of the tree owners to control the growth of the tree so it does not create a source of potential damage to neighboring landowner. Adverse possession. Here's something good that goes back up to the Malheur Refuge and where that peaceful pushback, that protest, that occupation and claim of adverse possession. So interject in there somewhat. Adverse possession, commonly referred to as squatters' rights, is a legal concept that concerns many Texas landowners. The risk of adverse possession encourages landowners to make regular use of land and inspect their property. Otherwise, an adverse possessor, a squatter, can claim title to that land if a number of conditions are met. It's very difficult in Texas to take someone's land by adverse possession. Although rare, this situation may arise periodically in the context of fencing. For example, assume that a landowner's fence is just inside the property line and his neighbor grazes livestock on the few feet of land belonging to the landowner, but not included within the fenced-in area. While the land does not technically belong to the neighbor who is using it, if several factors are met, the neighboring landowner may actually be able to seek title to that property. In order for someone to lawfully gain possession of land by adverse possession, there must be a visible appropriation. Let me try again. A visible appropriation and possession of the property that is open and notorious and is peaceful. That's a big one. Oh, so we are getting here close to the appendix. Yeah, over the top. Also, continue on. Under a claim of right, adverse and hostile to the claim of the landowner, and consistent and continuous for the duration of the statutory period. Each of these elements requires an in-depth legal analysis beyond the scope of this handbook to determine if they exist in a particular case. The key element a neighbor using another's land would have to prove is the under a claim of right element. The neighboring landowner needs to designately enclose the property for his or her own use in order to adequately give notice to the record owner of the hostile claim. Using a boundary fence line example, if a neighbor A builds his fence inside his property line, neighbor B's cattle occasionally grazing on the land is not going to be enough to gain title. However, if neighbor B builds his own fence just outside the current fence and on the property of a neighbor, that is more likely to be the sort of evidence that could be used to show that neighbor A had sufficient notice and neighbor B was taking a hostile claim to that strip of land. Simply grazing livestock on your land is not enough to gain possession by adverse possession. Good practice. If you have to build a fence inside your own boundary, is to write your neighbor and let them know you still intend to use your property to the boundary and consider filing a record of this fact if the real property records in the real property records of your county. Just a second, let me look a little bit of this here. Yeah, we're going to finish up. This is the last section before the appendix. Responsibility for fencing around oil and gas operations. In Texas, oil and gas companies have the right to enter a private property and locate their production facilities under the reasonable right to use the surface. Oil and gas companies are under no legal obligation to place a fence around their operations area in order to protect the surface owner's livestock. The mineral estate is dominant to the surface estate, meaning that a mineral owner or leasee has the implied right to use as much of the surface as is reasonably necessary to produce the minerals, without permission from or payment to the surface owner. In absence of a lease provision to the contrary, the only duty owed by the operator of an oil lease is the owner or leasee of the surface. Who is pasturing? Excuse me. Let me back up and do that again. In absence of a lease provision to the contrary, the only duty owed by the operator of an oil lease to the owner or leasee of the surface who is pasturing cattle is not to injure such cattle intentionally, willfully, or wantonly. There is no duty on part of the operator but to put fences around his operations. If livestock are injured, the landowner may have a legal claim if there is evidence that the oil gas operator acted in an intentional, willful, or wanton manner to injure the livestock, acted negligently in producing the minerals, or used more of the surface than was reasonably necessary. However, each of these claims will likely be difficult to prove. The landowner is much better off to include contractual provisions that require the operator to fence off operations to protect livestock, ideally in the oil gas lease itself. In the absence of a lease provision, communication with the oil and gas operator is key and likely the best course. The operator may be willing to put up a fence around its facilities in order to avoid potential liability. It goes on into the appendix from here, landowner maintenance checklist, stock law examples, and there's one original, a photocopy of an original one from way back when. We've got notes and acknowledgments and the end photo credits and the end page. This comes from the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, and you can find that agrilifeextensions.tamu.edu, and more extension publications can be found at that site as well, aglifebookstore.org. Well, let's see where we're at. Look at there, a mere extra near 40 minutes. And we're back and we're done, and that portion was don't fence me in, or fence them in, fence them out. It's all according to where you're at. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to come back with talk about next week in the second part from more tales from Texas. Will be on surface and estate rights and mineral rights. I just found out that you may own the water under your ground, but once you pump it out here and you pump it into what's called a tank or a pond or holding tank, call them tanks in Texas, call them ponds in Arkansas. But anyways, once that hits air, the state owns the water, and I'm pretty sure that's a lot of convolution there involved in leasing out water rights to a bunch of these frackers, pun intended. Anyways, so thanks for coming along again, and I'm waiting on Grim to come back in here with me for a second, and we'll announce this schedule. I'm gonna let the great and mighty Grim do that.
All right, Vinny.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. So give us a schedule. Give us a rundown of what we got. We can expect for the rest of the weekend here at reallibertymedia.com, rlmradio.xyz.
Yeah, okay. At 7 p.m. Eastern tonight is Grammy Mary in Grammy's Rocket Chair. Great show, 2 hours runs there. Then at 11 p.m. Eastern will be myself and the Mighty Moose Girl doing the Freakers Ball on this May the 4th be with you. Also Cinco de Mayo. So we'll do a little bit on that here on the Freakers Ball tonight. And then tomorrow morning at, noon Eastern is Grammy, Mary, and Flash doing the Dork Table. I'll be on Sunday right here on RLM Radio with the Blues at noon Eastern for 3 hours. We'll be playing trivia in chat as well, so come on over and join us for that and listen to some good blues. You're going to love that. And then immediately following me on Sunday afternoon is Hal Anthony behind the woodshed, opening up a big old can of whoop ass on ya. Don't miss it. Following him at 7 p.m. Eastern is Gary L. and Gigi's Boo on the Road Less Traveled. By the way, happy birthday, Gary L. Yesterday was Gary L's birthday, and I believe he is 29 once again. So that's it for the weekend lineup here. But it's a good bit of shows, and we try to entertain.
Awesome. Hey, appreciate you again, Grimner. Really, really do. The great and mighty Grimner, y'all. And we'll see y'all back here this evening for Freaker Friday, Grammy, and then later on, Grimner and the Mighty Moose Girl. All right. Thanks for listening along, everybody. I'll go gather up a link or two here. And Grimner, if once you've put all that stuff I've scattered about there, if you'll give me a look at it, and I'll see where I need to maybe include some more stuff there, and then we'll take it to press if that's okay.
Sounds great.
All right. You're awesome, brother. Appreciate it.
Peace, y'all.
Peace.